Let's welcome to the stage Cade Huskinson. He is the marketing manager at Camp Chef. We've got John Bausman, the VP of marketing at Outward Hound.
Yeah, John. Thanks, Ken.
And Jayme Torres, director of integrated marketing at Gaia Herbs.
All right.
All right, I'm going to hand this off to Ken Garff. He's the moderator from Amplifi.io. He is the CEO and founder. And let's get going, guys.
Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here. Is it not cool to be like in person, sitting next to people and in a space? I don't know. I'm just super pumped about it. I just want to take a quick second and thank a couple people. I want to thank everybody in the back controlling all the technology. I also want to thank my team who put this together. Actually got with our brand friends and got some swag to give away at the end of our session today. I run Amplifi.io. We do product content management. It's sort of a mixing of digital asset management and product information management. So the reason that I'm here today moderating is because these are friends that I've made along the way. And we talk a lot about content. We talk a lot about the challenges in creating content that converts. And we also talk a lot about challenges in managing the content so that you can have time to actually create things that matter. If you don't manage your content, then it will manage you. So these guys have some thoughts on that. We might get into that a little bit as well. So just generally, just kind of setting the framework, within like accelerators and decelerators, you'll see that content comes up quite a bit. There's other aspects of your all's business that is probably super important, in-stock rates, prices, things like that. But when you look at some of the accelerators, you'll see that creating craveable products is going to be kind of generated by like the media you create around your products, potentially good images, videos, client reviews. All of this might kind of fall in the content camp, and these are fantastic experts from the brands we just want to hear from today. So we'll dive kind of right into it, but generally within the e-commerce equation that you guys have been hearing so much about, we're going to be kind of focusing on the conversion track today. And so I'm just going to start it off with a couple of questions here for our panel and let them introduce themselves really quick as well. So if you want to just introduce yourselves and also just tell us a couple things that might keep you guys up at night as you guys run with the content for your brands. Go ahead, Cade.
Oh, am I starting?
Sure.
All right. My name is Cade Huskinson. I am the marketing manager at Camp Chef. I've been there for about 4 years. Prior to being the marketing manager, I was a social media manager, so content was day in and day out, everything. To do social media, you have to have content to post. So I was in it every single day. And now I have a really good content creator and social media manager under me that we together create the content. What keeps me up at night when it comes to content? That's a really good question. Honestly, the vast amount of content that it feels like you have to make as a brand. There's millions and millions of videos and photos being posted every single day across all the different platforms when it comes to social media, and it can be very overwhelming to try to figure out a way to break through that while also telling your brand story. And, there's like this Venn diagram of a bunch of different circles of what's relevant on social media and what's relevant to our brand and what's relevant to our customer, and really trying to find out where those all intersect. It can be quite the undertaking. So I think that would be my answer to this question.
Super, thanks. Jayme.
Hi, everyone. Jayme Torres, Director of Integrated Marketing at Gaia Herbs. Fairly new to Gaia. This is my 4th week with the company, but I am no stranger to the supplement industry. If you've never heard of Gaia Herbs, really our big mission is connecting people, planet, and plants together. So we have an extensive line of herbal and botanical supplements. We have a 350-acre farm in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains in Asheville, North Carolina, where we actually grow and harvest 25% of our ingredients for our products. So we're very connected. in connecting nature with modern science to help with collective wellness. So I guess what keeps me up at night? I would say not taking enough risks. So when you're managing a lot of content, it can be really overwhelming, and we have very consistent brand stories that we have to tell. And we have to make sure that we're showing up consistently no matter what channel you have, what channel you're in, no matter what customers you're trying to target, but making sure that there's continuity in the content that you're presenting to your customers. But taking the risk, I think, is really important, and a lot of us can be very risk averse depending on the industry you're in. For me, the FDA regulates what we do, and so we're held to very strict compliance on what we can and can't say. And so being able to take those risks are sometimes a challenge because you don't want to do something that's going to be too disruptive. But when you make those risks, you learn from it, you act with urgency, you pivot quickly, and you ultimately implementing something that probably surprises you in the end in terms of its effectiveness and helping to convert. So take your risks.
Thanks, John.
I'm John Bausman, and last night we were at the casino night, so I can definitely attest to Jayme taking risks. So that was fun. John Bausman, VP of Marketing at Hound. We're a multi-channel CPG brand that makes dog and cat toys, beds, puzzles. So I get to work with not just people, but dogs and cats all day, which is awesome. I'm a dog person, which is even more awesome. Not so much a cat person, but it's growing on me. And so my background, I started in social media years ago. To date myself, I started in social back when Facebook just came out with business pages, Twitter was just coming out, and I went to the public library and I got a book about what is Twitter. So the fact that there could be a book about Twitter and that it could be published in time to still be relevant says how fast everything's changing. But I share that to say that my background has primarily been keeping one foot into the content world and then one foot into the data world. I like making analysis-based decisions. I don't like data-driven decisions. There's a difference between those. Data-driven sounds really nice. Analysis-based mitigates the challenges of just looking at data. It brings the meaning to it. But I believe that those two things can be married when looking at content. And what keeps me up at night is twofold. Honestly, one, being able to create incredible content in this environment on small budgets. That's probably a reality that I see heads nodding that we all face is constraints. How do you compete in a world where there's such rich content and content generators and you have such small budget but high expectations? And the second is more personal, which is like, can I do it again? This idea of when you have a career where you have pushed and come up with creative ideas time and time again, can I live up to that expectation again? And can I perform at that?
Thanks, John. Awesome. Does anybody out there remember what Michael Phelps had on his bracelet? You get 10 points if you raise your hand and tell us. What do you got? Be you. Awesome. I actually was really happy to see Michael Phelps. I think he's a fantastic person. It was really awesome to hear. But I started thinking about just some tie-ins from his presentation. And you're looking at brands here that are all very different. You go from high-end teas to outdoor cooking equipment to dog toys, price ranges might be really different as well. I thought we'd just take a look together at some of the content that they've been creating and campaigns kind of representative of their work, and then we can talk some more about that. So let's start with Gaia Herbs. Jayme.
Wonderful, thank you. So at Gaia, we have, somewhere in the North Park of about over 300 SKUs. And so when you have such a large portfolio that has very different uses or benefits, it becomes really difficult to give each of the products the time and the spotlight that it really deserves. So our direct-to-consumer team was really doing some brainstorming in terms of how can we give these products the spotlight that really they deserve, and let's kind of test it out. And so if we go into the next slide, they came up with this campaign on Herby Hour, so kind of a spinoff of Happy Hour. And they started these campaigns, sending them out on Mondays from 5 to 8 p.m., featuring a specific product. And so what they have actually seen in doing this campaign so far, it's only been going on for about a couple months now, is that we're seeing 4 times higher conversions on this. So we're not necessarily getting new to brand individuals with it, but we're introducing a product that maybe our existing customers may have not tried before or have heard of. So it's providing the education, it's positioning the product. And so what the team's going to continue to do is really evaluate the different promotional strategies. Are there certain discounts that customers are gravitating to? Start to analyze the demographics of those that are engaging with the emails, actually making the purchases, and see if we can get even smarter in terms of what we're presenting to them, and eventually have a segmented campaign, Irby Hour, where it's not necessarily everybody getting the same email, but it becomes more customized and tailored to their needs and their purchasing patterns with the brand.
Super. So if someone goes to Irby Hour, what can they expect in that time frame?
Yeah, so you'll be able to get a discount on your product, on that particular product that you purchase. We have some really great, this complements very well with this product too. So of course we have to sort of push the upsell a little bit more if we can. But during the hours of 5 to 8, there's an email that comes, and if you're interested, just click through the email, make the purchase. The discount is automatically applied, so we try and reduce the friction of numerous clicks and make it very easy user experience for our customers. So it's very pleasant, ultimately leads back to the ultimate experience that they have with our brands.
Excellent. I don't know if it could be a tough question. What was some of the risks around creating this?
That's a really good question. I think one of the risks would be it not working, but then again, it wouldn't be a risk if you're not learning something from it. I think there were there's hierarchy of information, right? So what do you present, in the subject line? What are you presenting first in the copy? And you can see in some of these, the creatives were done even a little bit differently with the, CTA buttons in the headers, not in the headers. So really wanting to test out, is there a certain hierarchy of messaging that customers are gravitating to? Another thing is, of course, when you offer a discount, you have to look at how it eats into your margins of the products. But, having a substantial or at least dedicated budget for offering discounts and promotions is really important, and then analyzing that over time to make sure that you're not cutting into your margins more than you actually should. So I'd say that was probably the biggest risk there, but really proud of the team. I think they've done a really fantastic job and continuing to optimize and learn from it.
Fantastic. Thanks, Jayme. Super. Outward Hound. John.
So before I talk about this, I saw a lot of head nods with the budget comment. So I want to just add this note in before we kind of dive into our content example. How many people listened to the Manscaped presentation yesterday? Wow, a lot of hands. Okay, that's awesome. One of the takeaways that I consistently heard in that, and it was towards the end that he really emphasized it, was the idea of fire drills and how constantly experiencing fire drills. And I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but when making content, that can feel like a big fire drill, right? You get samples in late, you have to produce, products are launching. And so one way that I believe can be really helpful in doing some of these creative endeavors that we're talking about is breaking down the true requirements for your content. And so what I do is I tend to whiteboard, and I'll just give a very quick playbook, photo and video, and I'll document all the different photos and videos that we need and knock out which ones are true requirements and turn it in a very systematic process. Because what you'll find is there's actually not as many requirements as it feels like. And what it does is also, when it comes to things like studio stills, just document the number of angles that you want and make it very systematic for your content creators, because it sounds like it's not sexy, and it's not. A lot of marketing is looking at numbers and doing a lot of not sexy things, but we glorify the cool things. So focus on being able to do the systematic things that free up your bandwidth, your creativity, and your resources to do some of the cool things that we're talking about. So the next slide, we actually just launched a new brand. I mentioned I'm a big dog person. Cat is growing on me. I think that's actually why cats like me, is they know that I don't necessarily like them. So naturally they gravitate to me. It's kind of that weird thing. So if you're a cat person, which I've actually learned Jayme has a cat, so I'm learning about cats even more as we're going through this week together, is we had a brand called Pet Stages. And we weren't growing our cat line the way that we should. It was predominantly dog, and there was a great opportunity for cat, but we really hadn't been able to figure that out. And so what we end up doing is, through a series of creativity, like, why don't we lean in to the authenticity of being a cat and the authenticity of the differences between being a dog owner and a cat owner, because those are different, right? So leaning into that, we actually came up with a new line called Cat Stages. And so Cat Stages, our face of the brand is Kyle the cat. And he has his own dating profile. You can see it right there. And it's very well built out. This actually was a ton of fun for the team. It's a little small to see on the screen, but I can tell you a couple of Kyle's favorite things because it's very relevant. So Kyle, the species is the best. He's a cat. Occupation, he is a Cat Stages brand ambassador and judge by day, exterminator by night.
So this is his dating profile.
This is the dating profile, straight up. This is him. If you have another cat that's interested, you can swipe right. Dislikes, too much attention or not enough attention, or Baz. Or then simply to end it, simple pleasures, swiping breakables off the counter. And that's a real reality. Dogs and cats consume a lot of content on the internet, but few brands have been able to kind of lean into the unique nature between the two. And so what we did is we kind of led with this first. And for those that went to the Liquid Death talk yesterday, so leading with humor, maybe not to that extent, right? But leading into the humor for our audience, and then being authentic to who cats are and how they're different. So we actually just launched this, and what was amazing is we're multi-channel, so huge on Amazon and then Chewy, but also brick and mortar. And what we're seeing is actually this 180 from our retailers and a 180 on our e-commerce as consumers are resonating with this, as buyers are resonating with this, because it's speaking to the end consumer. I'm a firm believer in the reality that don't stay superficial, get deeper into the why. I wish I was as smart as Simon Sinek, but to get deeper into the why. And so for this, being able to curate our content exclusively to cat owners and to really the reality of being a cat and having that be our spokesperson. So when we launched this, we really just kind of focused on 4 things, establishing those KPIs, having that groundwork in play, tracking the performance, of course, analyzing, and then optimizing. But a lot of the themes that I think you've heard throughout the last 36 hours are really true of this authentic approach, leaning into humor in a very saturated market. And then I would add doing that systematic work on the upfront so that you can really kind of free the space and have the place to be creative to do programs like that.
How would this audience be true to their brand? How would they create authenticity, do you think?
I love that. So stealing Simon Sinek, I'm a big why person. So I would ask, like, why? Why would someone want your product? Either what problem is it solving or how is it adding to their life? You had a really good note you shared yesterday from one of the talks. And it was, do you want to share that?
Yes, it was with the talk with Cricket, president of Spanx. And she had something really powerful in terms of, because you can get completely sidetracked on, a lot of different projects or putting out the fire drills. And so it's like a prioritization exercise. And how do I know what to focus on? And, she had the 3 pillars. It was, if what you're doing accomplishes brand awareness, new customer acquisition, and maintaining your retention metrics, then you should be focusing on that. Yep. And if not, you might need to ask yourself if it's worth prioritizing at this time. And I thought it just really stood out to me. It was a very, very well-rounded way of helping to keep you focused on how do you remain true to your brand and the stories that you're trying to tell.
So I'd say focus on the why. Why does someone want that? And then when you kind of drill into that, I think that was such a wonderful framework that I'm glad that you went to that so I could hear that. And then I would just add to that, and this is probably just more of a personal pet peeve thing, do not lean into the you deserve it mentality. I feel like as a marketer, whenever I see that, I cringe, particularly living in America. I'm like, if we as marketers are leaning into the why as capitalistic entitlement, then we're just being pretty lazy at that point. But if you can find a deeper rooted reason into why someone would genuinely want to connect with your brand, why would they genuinely want that product, and how does it be different? And so those 3 verticals, that's what I would say.
Thanks. Cade, if you were to answer the why, and then you're going to go try and speak to that using media, I don't know, do you have a philosophy for that? Camp Chef's pretty unique audience.
Yeah, I think when it comes to the why, I think oftentimes we get mixed up on what is our why as a brand, which is important to understand, but more than that, as a marketer, you need to understand what is your customer's why. Why are they going to buy your product? What is their motivation behind purchasing it? What's going to resonate with them? And honestly, oftentimes, especially in today's day and age, with Amazon reviews and public reviews and forums and Reddit and all these things, you can find your customer's why pretty easy. Where in the past you had to do focus groups, you had to do market research and interviews with your customer base, which is still very important now, but I found that oftentimes your customers will tell each other what their why was. Hey, I bought this product because of XYZ and it solved my problem. And if you start seeing a pattern, your job as a marketer is to amplify that and put that into your marketing, because that's a message that's already proven itself and your customers are already telling each other, this is the why that this brand solved. So that's a real easy shortcut in today's day and age, is to just watch reviews, watch Reddit, watch anywhere where people are talking about your brand, be keenly aware of what they're talking about.
So you translated that into a couple of videos here that we're going to show. Tell us a little bit about what we're going to see, or if you want to talk after them, that's okay too.
Yeah, no, I'll explain it before. So Camp Chef, we're unique in the sense that we started in the camping space with camp stoves and things to elevate the cooking experience in the outdoors. And in recent years, with the advent of pellet grills, we've moved into the back patio space with flat top grills, pellet grills, and things like that. Going to my point on the why, this product that we'll show 2 videos on was developed out of market research of watching trends. So in our industry, one of the taboos of pellet grills was they don't give as much smoke flavor as an offset smoker that uses wood splits and is built out of like an old propane tank type, your deep, true blue barbecue. So, and in our industry, that was very well known, but there was no brand really tackling it. So we developed a product that allowed you to supplement your smoke flavor using the grill without having to buy like a smoke tube or do anything modifications to your grill. I spent a couple days just going into every Facebook group that I could find, every Reddit thread that I could find, and I have probably 20 pages of screenshots, 1,000 plus of people talking about this issue. So once we saw that, we knew we had a product that had product market fit, which is another point I want to make, is sometimes the reality is sometimes your product isn't reaching the market isn't solving the market's problem like you think it is. And that's really something you need to be aware of as a marketer too, is you may have a fundamental flaw in the product, but your job as a marketer is to smooth that out as much as you can. But when you have a product that really strikes a market, it makes it a lot easier. So we'll go with our most recent ad, which is our babysitter campaign in barbecue. One thing that was a colloquial phrase within our industry is with pellet grills, you don't have to babysit your grill. What that means is in an offset smoker, you have to sit there and learn fire management. You have to keep the temperature where it needs to be, add wood. But when you add wood, your fire's gonna, your heat's gonna go up. And so there's a real heavy learning curve where with pellet grills, you don't have to babysit it, is what our customer base says. So we played off of that to create an ad. And then, so we'll show that, and then we'll show what we launched with, and I have some context around that.
Okay, super.
Hey, what time's the babysitter coming?
They should be here any minute.
I'm sorry, I'm late.
Are you the
babysitter? Yeah.
No worries. Come on in, she's out back.
Okay.
There she is. That's my baby. She's a little needy. So check her temperature regularly, feed her often. The wood's right over there.
Okay, Mr. M, don't worry about it. Go enjoy your night. I've got this.
Thanks, Bob. I'll be right over there if you need anything.
Sure. Let's party.
I'm not a babysitter. Neither are you. Stop kidding yourself. Get a Camp Chef Woodwind Pro. It's all the flavor of an offset with the convenience of a pellet grill. Another smoke box on top of the big smoke box. You stick wood in it, whatever kind of wood you want. Hickory, it'll do it. Maple, it'll do it. Apple, it'll do it. Oak, yes.
So I'll add some context behind this, and I want to make a point when it comes to creating content. We had the concept of the babysitter ad for about 1.5 years. We knew this product was coming out, so we kind of intentionally saved it for this product rather than going with the other pellet grills that we sold. But this ad, when we wrote it, one, wasn't going to be a sitcom. Two, the end was going to be a voiceover with B-roll overlay. And as we got into filming this, Jack, our babysitter, he was just incredible. And so we actually had him stand in front of the grill and just riff for like 18 minutes. We have this clip of him just going off and off and off. And it was actually midway through the shoot that we made the decision, like, we should have the babysitter, almost like in a PSA style, say, I'm not a babysitter and neither are you. And then in editing is when we got into it and we're like, we don't want this to feel like an ad. It feels like an ad. And our amazing editor, Lucas, we didn't even have this conversation. He just sent us an edit where it had kind of this sitcom feel, and we're like, that's it. I'll reiterate this point with the next video, but I think as a marketer, it's important to, how do I want to say this? Now, I'll say this. We may have executed this the wrong way. I'm sure there's some creative directors or people in here that are like, what were you thinking? We went into this with the concept, and then it was very fluid, and we kind of just went with what felt right. And so the end product is very different from what we started out with, which I think is important as a marketer. If you're putting together content and you're like, this just isn't it, don't be afraid to pivot. Let's go to the next video, okay, and I'll explain after that.
This kind of bark, I've never seen on any pellet smoker ever.
This gives you the control of a pitmaster.
I have never gotten a brisket like this from a pellet smoker.
And this is a difference in kind, not just a difference in degree. It's a completely different thing. It's a game changer.
So this was our teaser video, and we had a completely different campaign idea. It's similar messaging, but different execution before launch. And then about 4 weeks before we launched, we had an ambassador event where we flew in some heavy hitters in the barbecue industry. Those three, if you do barbecue or watch any barbecue content, they're really big on YouTube and in Facebook, and they're very well known. So we flew them out to test out the Woodwind Pro. We weren't sure how they were going to react to it, but we knew we wanted to get some sound bites if they loved it. And we got the sound bites. We started playing with them, and we completely shifted our go-to-market strategy because we're like, this is more compelling than what we were going to go with. And so, again, we pivoted. And when we launched with this video, it really hit the industry really hard because we had recognizable faces who were authorities in the industry talking favorably about our product. And again, this was a taboo subject in our industry. I don't think any company in the pellet grill industry wanted to admit that, hey, maybe our products aren't meeting the needs of our customer base as much as we think they are. But we were willing to do that, and we kind of had to be delicate about it because we sell a lot of other pellet grills that don't have this feature in it. So we didn't want to come out and say, pellet grills suck, get this one. We had to kind of do this little dance of like, you want smoke, but you want a little bit more control over that flavor. This is a solution. And so, again, we pivoted and went with this launch, this teaser, and it performed way better than I think the other version would have done because it just felt right. We just felt like this is what we need to go to market with. So
I feel like it's dripping with good flavor and authenticity.
Yeah.
Good job. So we did a little research across our customers, and we talked to them a little bit just for this presentation. Said, could you give us some of your top pain points in creating content? I think some of these answers were echoed here by this group in discussions as well. But producing impactful content, generating content consistently, aligning with the buyer journey, consensus among stakeholders. That's maybe an interesting one to kind of pause on. I know in some of our discussions we talked a little bit about producing content for your boss versus for your target audience. I don't know if you guys have run into that. I can imagine like the boss while your guys riffing in front of the barbecue being like, maybe not appreciating exactly the riff, and maybe he's taking some artistic liberties there. Do you guys have any thoughts about that, John?
Yeah, and I'll be quick because I'm a marketer, so brevity's not my gift. So I used to work for Cabela's, and I oversaw the social media team. And when I started, user-generated content wasn't really a thing. And the lure, long-held fanciful belief, was that our ambassadors and higher-paid individuals was the best performing content. So going back to my example of kind of more systematic thinking, I built out a very data-focused program, proved out that UGC actually better performed consistently across platforms than these high-end campaigns. That took about a year and a half to start seeing the momentum in the company, right? It was different than what I was told from above, but the data and the analysis said one thing. Fast forward, we did Father's Day, which is the second largest campaign for the retail. And we created an entire UGC video using everyday dads in their videos of them experiencing first moments with their kids. So this is a kid catching their first fish with their dad, hunting and harvesting a buck for the first time, hiking and seeing a waterfall for the first time. So it was real, it was authentic. And we just pulled it together and made this video because going back to the why the dad should buy the product had nothing to do with the product, it had everything to do with the memory that they could have. And that was entirely different than the ethos that we had. So what ended up happening is the social guy got brought into this. I was like, I'm just a social guy. And we ended up going to market with this campaign called Father's Day First. And it was about creating those first moments with your kids. And that was not just a social thing. That wasn't just a digital thing. That was actually our go-to-market across all of retail for Father's Day. So we actually launched using the most inexpensive campaign we've ever done. It cost us $36,000 to make that video for the rights. And at least on social, it was the most successful campaign we had ever run. And I hate the word viral because it's way overutilized, it's bastardized, but for me, that was viral. It was incredible. And how did that convert? We actually exceeded our revenue targets inside the store. AdAge, for us, recognizes one of the best retail campaigns for Father's Day. And the third is, I use that on social from a new-to-file strategy. So what I did is we promoted it, targeted it, and then I retargeted people that viewed that video. And I served them a second video, and I started moving them down my funnel, where eventually I closed. So you can use this incredible content to convert. It doesn't necessarily mean that the content itself always has to be the closer. It could be the one that gets them in the door. But I say that to be, hey, we could not have done that if we didn't have our systematic work done, that we could prove with our data, prove that this worked, and then eventually use the data and the analysis to combat lure, which would have been the boss what he wanted.
That's a really good point. I think one of the big problems is getting too comfortable with your content. So, there's a lot of work that goes into gathering the insights, understanding the whys from your customers on why they're purchasing from you or looking for something like you. And so it's a big labor of love. In some cases, it's budget intensive. In some cases, it's blood, sweat, and tears that go into it. And so you come up with this amazing campaign that's just fantastic. But you can't get too comfortable in just checking the box and saying, okay, we did it, right? You celebrate your wins, you continue to track your metrics and learn from it, but always look for the next way to evolve it and never, the minute you get too comfortable is the moment that competition really comes in and swoops in behind you. And so at Gaia, actually next week, we're doing a video production on a campaign that is around the hardest working herbs. And the whole premise and philosophy around that is we don't cut corners in what we do. So the 350-acre farm is where we harvest, it's a regenerative organic farm, so there's a lot that goes into it. There's composting. We leverage cardboard from manufacturing to help mitigate some of the weeds when we're planting new plants. I was actually there last week getting my hands dirty and playing the role of a farmer for 2 hours. And it's just, when you look at really the identity of the brand and what it has to offer, constantly looking for those creative ways and helping to solve the problems. But in the supplement industry, we always have the next Me Too that's approaching. And the clickbait is very real, right? And nothing is more, I think, infuriating than seeing somebody doing the clickbait tactic, not having compliant language and claims and trying to come in and have the big payday. And so it makes it very complex in the industry that I'm in to really cut through that noise and show the authenticity and the genuineness of the brand and really, how are the standards so high? And so the Hardest Working Herbs campaign that I'm really excited for us to be producing, I think is really going to help us kind of cut through that noise.
Yeah,
I want to make
fantastic.
a point real quick on this. So, I don't know if you guys know who Rory Sutherland is, but he has a book called Alchemy. It's about behavioral psychology and marketing and all that. Anyways, I don't know if it's in the book or if it's in a keynote or something I saw of his, but he shares in soccer, when you have a shootout, you have, the kicker who's kicking it. It's just one-on-one. It's the goalie and the kicker. Well, statistically speaking, the goalie is better off just staying in the middle when you look at statistics. But oftentimes they'll jump to either side. And statistically speaking, the kicker is better off kicking it straight down the middle. But they kick towards the corners. And the reason why, and I'll relate this back to being a marketer and creating content, is if you're the goalie and you stand in the middle and it does go to the side, you look like an idiot because you just stood there.
Yeah.
And so your human nature is to want to jump to either side because you're at least exerting some effort, and if it goes the other way, you just misread the situation. If you stand there, you're just a bad goalie. Conversely, if the kicker kicks it down the middle and the goalie doesn't move, they look like an idiot. So they're incentivized to kick it into the corner, and if the goalie gets it, I just misread where the goalie was going to go, and it wasn't my fault. But statistically speaking, they'd be better off just kicking it right down the middle. So there's a lot of self-preservation going on in the dynamics of that situation. I think in an organization, you can also fall into that trap as a marketer to where you might be better off going with user-generated content, but you might be perceived as, not being this, romanticized marketer who's creating this amazing ad campaign that costs hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so you need to make sure that what you're doing is what's actually going to work or what's going to drive results rather than, play this role that your boss is going to see, if that makes sense. I think you can fall into the trap of being like, yeah, we're going to do this big thing, and it makes you look really, really good in front of your bosses, but in the end, it doesn't resonate with your customer. I hope that made sense, but you just got to avoid that trap. Your job is to communicate your company's product to the customer, not look good in front of your boss. And hopefully, you can do both, but the customer has to come first.
And the boss might come later once it's successful.
Yeah, once the results come through. Yes, exactly.
Super. I think, I want to go a couple minutes more and just to ask if the audience has any questions. And we want to talk a little bit about actually managing content. And then we have a few giveaways, and then we'll wrap up. There's about 6 minutes for that. Anybody have any questions that you're dying to ask that might be representative of the group wanting to get some information from these folks? Can you just yell it out?
Yeah. How do you guys think about the ROI of production cost and return? Do you guys think of it as sort of a total budget, you want to create X number of pieces, or do you measure the individual cost of pieces?
Might as well repeat it one more time.
Really good question.
Oh, sorry about that. So how do you guys think about sort of budgets and costing, right? So do you allocate sort of a specific budget to a specific piece of content quarterly, biannually? Do you do a true up and say, this content cost X and the return was Y? Or do you just look at it holistically as a bucket?
So that's a great question. So my thought process is, going back to my systematic approach, is once I've mapped out all the different types of content that we can create, I then allocate by SKU, how many hours is it going to take my internal team member to do that? And what would be the cost if I need to outsource that? And part of that is both budgetary, right? And part of that is also to manage expectations, because if I go do a photo shoot, for instance, and it costs me $5,000, probably to some of us in the room, you're like, oh my gosh, that's a steal of a deal. Or, wow, how'd you do that for $5,000? You tell that to perhaps the CEO, he's like, you spent $5,000 on a photo shoot? Like, what do you mean? It's just you point and take it and you can use your iPhone, right? And so part of that is being able to sometimes equate the time with the money, I think is initially like how I look at that, because it does help me roadmap. So for instance, I just did this exercise with a team member where I said, hey, if it takes you X amount of hours to do studio still work without models, just product, but I can outsource that to this third party in China, and they can shoot, edit it, treat it, send it on over, I'm buying your hours back for this amount. But your true skill set is video. Like, that's your strongest skill set. That's way more expensive based upon the systematic approach to outsource. So if I could free up your time, I'd rather do that so you can actually do the video. Now I have the dollars and the numbers to do that. Personally, at the very end of the day, what I like to do is I like to collaborate with other brands. So speaking next to us, Nick Joy is from Stanley. I've done photo shoots with Nick, where I've been like, hey, listen, I don't have much money. This guy's gonna cost X, but I have Y amount of money. You wanna go in on it? And we'll just get the rights to both those images. So what ends up happening is now I have 3 brands contributing to a photo shoot. It allows me to get the same degree of talent for way low cost, and guess what? Next thing you know, I'm saying, hey, your stuff's in my stuff's in your stuff. Like, you guys wanna do some like online collaborations and giveaways? Because we already got the content, right? And so now you're able to do it at an affordable rate, but you're actually increasing the value. And so those are ways I've tried to do that from a planning perspective, is I try to use my dollars more towards the lifestyle content and the video content, because those are harder.
Thanks. Go ahead.
I would say to just layer on top of that on the ROI piece, it depends on the type of content you're creating too and what the objective is. So building brand awareness usually takes a lot, right? And sometimes you can't always contribute brand awareness to an immediate ROI, right? So it's all about the layering of the content and tracking the person across the ecosystem to really engaging with the brand. So if I know that we've got some new growth personas that we want to capture, then I know right off the bat, we're going to have to find efficient ways to develop that content, but also a clear understanding that we may not be able to necessarily tie that back to an ROI. But that's where, you know, the managing of the expectations, the finding the efficient ways of doing the content, leveraging something that's a little bit more templated, and thinking about the overlays that could be done internally to help save on some of those costs as well. So I think it also depends on the type of content you're creating for and what those objectives are, top of funnel awareness or, you know, bottom of funnel and ultimately retention.
Yeah, awesome. I'm gonna jump forward a little bit. Another key problem we wanted to look at today was problems around actually managing the content. I'm just cut to some of the chase here. These folks happen to be here because they're Amplifi customers or have been multiple times. Content management, talk to us a little bit. You started to get into the dollars and cents of like man hours, and I don't know, just from our perspective, we start seeing a lot of creative resources applied to actually just managing the content, which should be something that's maybe more technology driven. But anyway, John, you want to touch on that?
Absolutely. So I got asked that question when I first brought on Amplifi at a previous role. And at the very end of it, the sales team, who, to be clear, was not necessarily supportive of this. It was change, and change was scary. At the end of the year, the sales team said it was the best business decision. Not the best marketing decision, the best business decision that we made. And here's why. We had an initiative where we want to get all of our products, which was over 1,000 SKUs, on all of the e-commerce sites that we worked on, right? So we want to get all of them on Bass Pro Shop. In the past, that would have taken weeks through pulling all the images, getting the right formats, getting all the information together, curating and putting it together, right? Because of the systematic approach, and I am very big on that, we built it to scale in partnership with Amplifi, and in 60 seconds, I had all the images I needed, all the product information in the file format that they needed, and I sent it on over to Bass Pro. So what that meant was weeks of revenue generation that we would not have had beforehand. And all of that was ease. It's not just the money, but it was the time. But in that example, it's always my go-to, because 60 seconds versus weeks, you're making money and you're saving time.
Thanks. I'm just going to scan through a couple of these. Just this is Amplifi just in a nutshell. We just have a couple of minutes left. We are a cloud-based system. We help brands centralize all of their digital assets and all their information. We use the information as a framework, sort of a skeleton, by which you can organize everything else. And we do that at scale, and we have a lot of different outputs that kind of hopefully reduce friction between the people that buy your stuff. Maybe that's a reseller, maybe that's a marketplace, maybe that's some kind of other channel. And we're just trying to reduce the friction there and give you back like creative time. And when you ask like graphic artists to manage folders full of images, you're kind of misusing their great creativity. Yeah. So we try and come in and help with that. Do we have like 1 second left? I thought I'd pull up your system and just show this group.
Yeah, go ahead.
So this is the Camp Chef instance of our software, and I was just going to do a quick search here, and you can kind of see something. I'm just going to type in like Woodwind Pro. So the system is now going through all the digital assets and then all the actual products, and it's basically predicting what it thinks I'm looking for. And as a human, I can now get to all the images, all the videos, all the product information classified in various ways, documents, maybe even some external links to social media, anything else. All in one place, super easy to share. This is just like, say, a human sharing to a human. I could just type in their email address or get a link and share that content off. Then the recipient can choose their own sizes of things. But this is just like a human sharing to one human. On another day, somebody might say, hey, search 500 SKUs, put it in the Amazon spreadsheet format and send it to Amazon, and that can happen through the system as well. Once you kind of have everything in one place, it starts giving you this nice framework to decide like what's missing in our campaigns. Is our brand doing, do we have products that we wanted to concentrate on and we didn't have any videos for? When you can see all that, it starts accelerating those conversations. So right now we're gonna do a quick giveaway, and my buddy Jared's gonna help me. We have some color-coded stickies under your chairs.
Check underneath your chair. There are different sticky note colors. If you have one, you're very lucky today.
Awesome. And we're hoping the smallest person in the room gets the largest pizza thing here. So if you have a colored sticky under, come on up and we'll tell you what you want.
Come on up if you have a sticky. Oh, it's really loud.
It could be this awesome hedgehog.
Woo! Is it green? We have Gaia Herbs package.
The Squeak sells it. The Squeak sells it.
This is a Gaia Herbs, right? Okay, awesome.
Blue is a dog toy.
We also heard from Gaia Herbs that if you go on their website and you choose something you like, you can type in Accelerate and get a 20% discount. So thank you, Jayme.
So everybody in this room is a winner.
Woo! That's our presentation. Good luck with your content.